Okay. It's 6 o'clock and I'm calling this meeting of the Plainfield Charter Township Board to order. Supervisor Tom Coleman is not here tonight. Can I get a motion to nominate a president pro tem for the evening?
I nominate Susan Morrow as President Pro Tem for tonight's meeting.
Okay.
Support that.
Okay. Motion by Kathy, support from Bill. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Susan?
Thank you. And welcome to our meeting. This is very exciting to have people in our audience. Tonight, Kathy will offer the invocation, and then we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please bow your heads with me. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we can gather together. Lord, we pray for our country. We pray for wisdom for our leaders in authority, that they would make good decisions and wise decisions in the best interest of all in our country. And Lord, here as a board tonight, give us wisdom, integrity, clarity of thought, Lord, that we would make the best decisions possible for the people that we represent. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kathy. The first item of business is our public comments. If you have something you'd like to talk to the board about, which is not on the agenda, please come up to the podium and give us your name and address. We'll listen to your comments, but we will not be answering questions or have a conversation between the person who's making their comments and someone from the board. Is there anyone who would like to speak for public comments? Going once. Moving on with the agenda. We have a consent agenda. It's been published and reviewed. A motion would be in order.
I move to approve the agenda.
Support.
Support that.
And the support is from Mr. Pfaff. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn,
Yes.
Mr. Pfaff,
Yes.
Ms. Beatty,
Yes.
Mrs. Morrow,
Yes,
Mrs. Lowenthal, yes.
thank you. Motion carries. Moving on with new business, we will turn to Cameron for an explanation.
Okay, and I'm going to turn it over very quickly to Pete. We've got a couple of planning items, and Pete's with us tonight. He'll let Tim take over from there.
Well, excuse me. First thing I want to make clear is on the brigade application. There is a little error in the introductory paragraph. Should read 4.5 acres, not 45 acres. The dot is missing there, so that's on our fault. But I do want to say we've got a fairly straightforward project here. Essentially what you have is redevelopment, well, not redevelopment, preparation for development, the expansion of brigade or a developmental parcel behind them. Either option could be out there. It's expected to be finish about 2027, excuse me, so this is essentially a short-term project. One big thing that we might have to work with them on tweaking over time is the grades adjacent to the road right-of-way to make sure there's smooth transition from this property to the road right-of-way. It does involve 3 parcels, the trademark property to the southwest and the Belmont Plastics site to the northwest. Other than that, we have no conditions of approval other than the standard soil removal conditions. And we recommended staff-wise, and the Planning Commission also recommended approval of this project. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. If there are comments from people in the audience who'd like to comment on this proposal, you can come to the podium and give us your name and address. Anyone wishing to speak on this subject? Then the public comments are closed, so discussion from the board. Mr. Pfaff, any comments?
I'm set, thanks.
Good.
Mr. Brinkman?
Nope, I'm good.
Ms. Beatty?
Nope, had discussion already. Thank you.
Mr. Hagedorn?
I appreciate the expansion that you're doing, and I saw it in the Planning Commission and voted for it there.
Ms. Lowenthal?
I'm all set, thank you.
And I too, I'm excited about this project, and Brigade Fire has been a very nice addition to Plainfield Township. A motion would be in order.
I move to grant a short-term soil removal permit to remove sand and grade portions of 5701 Safety Drive, 5801 Safety Drive, and 5641 West River Drive, subject to the following conditions as approved. Number one, the permit is subject to the brigade soil removal conditions dated October the 10th, 2023, and the grading plant, and that also dated October the 10th, 2023.
Thank you. Is there support?
Second?
Mr. Hagedorn supported. All those in favor, roll call vote.
Hey, Mr. Pfaff,
Yes.
Ms. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn,
Yes.
Mrs. Merrill,
Yes,
Mrs. Lowenthal, yes.
motion carries. On to the next subject, consider an ordinance to amend the proposed amendments of the zoning ordinance. Are we turning to Peter again?
That is correct. Well, several years ago now, I think it is, we promised the planning commission and the board that we would do regular updates to the zoning ordinance. So this is us doing that. In this case, we're dealing with several hot button items that have come up with sheds and accessory buildings. Dealing with some nuance issues and some clarifications of definitions, and then cleaning up some non-conforming, giving ourselves some direction with a non-conforming chapter as it relates to the MXU district and interior remodels. But essentially, this is a house cleaning exercise here. It's also keeping things in order and up to date on a more regular basis. And been happy to do it. It's been nice doing it. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make comments on this proposal? Questions and comments from the board members. Mr. Brinkman,
All set?
Beatty,
I'm good. Thank you.
Lowenthal,
All set?
Mr. Pfaff,
All set.
Mr. Hagedorn,
As well.
and I also. A motion would be in order.
Ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission and staff.
I support that.
And a roll call vote, please?
Hey, Mrs. Merrill,
Yes.
Mrs. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Pfaff,
Yes.
Mr. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn,
Yes.
Mrs. Lowenthal, yes.
Now we'll move on to discussion of the proposed 2024 budget. And we have with us, our finance director, Warren Smith. I assume this is a play with two people, right?
Yep.
All right.
I'll let Warren start this time, and then usually I steal all his thunder and say everything he wants to say before I'm gonna give him the first opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Cameron. All right, as Sue said, I'm Warren Smith, Finance Director. So tonight, being brought before you is the 2024 budget for all the funds of Plainfield Charter Township. So this has been in works for quite some time. We start this process end of June and kind of carry it out up to this point. So a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of revisions go into this. So I provided a lot of information to you. We've had 2 budget meetings already where we went through it in detail. There hasn't been many changes since then. So I just was going to point out a few highlights. So the 2024 general fund operating budget has revenues higher than 2023 by about $950,000. Of that, there's a big portion of that is due to tax revenues. Which I believe are about 464,000 higher than they were in 2023. Expenses are higher by 2.2 million, but that's a little bit deceptive because it includes a new transfer out to our new capital outlay fund, which we used to always budget for and spend all the money out of the general fund. And this is a new thing which Cameron kind of explained in the weekly update pretty well about how we're gonna be tracking things, all the capital spending through that fund, and it's going to be easier to see how the general fund operates without all those fluctuations of capital being spent. It should help things be much cleaner in years to come. So we also are anticipating state shared revenue higher by almost 150,000, interest on investments by about 220,000, and that's kind of a conservative number. I will probably end up being more than that. And on the expenditure side, we are seeing the biggest change in the election department budget, which is due to, number one, being an election year in 2024. So that means that there's going to be more elections for us to manage and have to fund. And the other part is there's so many new mandates for elections that it's some of those costs, we aren't sure how much they're going to be. But part of it is being able to be open for in-person voting 9 days in advance of elections. So that requires additional personnel to staff that. We're seeing increase in fire department budget of about 100,000, and we're budgeting 750,000 again for 2024 road construction. And everything else has been pretty clearly explained to you. Are there any questions at this time? Okay.
Does anyone have any questions regarding the 2024 budget that's being presented tonight? Anyone from the public? Public comments? Okay, moving on to the board members for comments. Mr. Brinkman, do you have any comments for Warren?
No, it seems like we're doing very well with the budgeting, and the taxes are moving great. So other than that, no questions.
Ms. Beatty, any comments?
Just one quick question. The 209,000 for the additional because of the election. So would that be flat if we were not having to do the 9 days?
No, it wouldn't. We generally see every other year the budget for elections either go up or down because on non-election years, we may not have any elections, but sometimes there may be a special election, which most of those costs are oftentimes paid for by the school district or whoever is requesting the special election.
Up to for the 209,000.
Not for all of it.
Most of it. Thank you.
Beth?
All set.
And Mr. Hagedorn?
Another question on the election. Is there any reimbursement from anyone, either the Republican or Democratic parties or the state, because there is a primary next year, or is this all on us?
I don't know the answer to that question.
So the August and November are all on us. That's the way the law is set up. The presidential primary should be reimbursed by the parties, but that is also worked in, should be worked into the numbers here, so.
Okay, that's all I had. Thanks, Warren. I got my other question answered.
All right.
And my question, again, is on the election, but I actually talked with Tina this week, and some good news came out of the legislature. Right now, in the past, there has been a limit for the number of registered voters in a precinct. The limit was 2,999. It's been that for many, many years. But now, because of the influx of the absentee ballots and anybody can vote absentee, they have finally raised the number of voters in each precinct to 5,000, which will relate to having to open fewer precincts. So I don't know whether it took effect immediately. So we should start seeing and talking about, and I talked to Tina about it, and she is already sort of beginning to figure out how we can use that to reduce some of the costs. And really, it could reduce a whole bunch, like 100,000, if we were able to take out 5 precincts or something like that. And you're looking at one.
Yeah,
Down
there's a lot of things that prevent us from doing too much there. There's
That's
different
right.
school districts, different county commission districts.
Right.
Tina and Kathleen have looked at it, and it looks like we can probably combine 2 into 1, and that's
Wonderful.
probably, right now, all we can accomplish. If some other things were shifted around, then maybe we can do more in the
Good.
future.
We'll be happy with 1.
Yep.
And the other thing with the election, and I'm glad that we're on television tonight, because the precincts have to be open for 9 days prior to an election, with a real live person working every single one of those days. Not the same person, but these people have to be trained, and it's going to be a huge project for the clerk's department and the elections people to find and train all these people who are going to work on the 9 days ahead of time. So I really encourage any of our citizens in Plainfield Township, and you can actually work in an election in any community in Kent County, probably in the state, but I know there are people who live in Plainfield and go to work for other districts, and we probably have some people from other districts working for us too. But next year is a very, very busy year with elections, and we need a really good, strong base of people to work all of that and make sure everybody gets trained. You aren't expected to do anything that you haven't been trained for. Another question I had, I was surprised about the reduction in the, under the enterprise fund. We have this huge sewer project going, I'll call it Mr. Berger, and yet with the revenue, the expenditure is hardly anything different than this year. I would have thought that that would have been much larger. It's under the sewer fund.
I'm wondering if, Warren, if that's operating expenditures or if it includes capital.
In the enterprise funds, most of the capital is not budgeted as an expense because it's capitalized. Whereas the general fund is a governmental fund, and we expense it in the year that it occurs. So for instance, with the sewer fund, those projects are planned, and if you look at the cash projections under the last tab of your budget book, it shows the cash projections, so it will show some of those projects listed out there. So they are in the budget where they are planned, but they don't run through the expenditure side of things.
Thank you, I appreciate that. That's going to be a huge and expensive project. Let me take a quick look through my notes. I believe all my questions are answered. Any more discussion on the subject of the 2024 budget? Motion would, oops, Cameron. Motion would be in order.
I move to approve the 2024 budget as presented.
Support.
And that will be a roll call vote, please?
Okay, Ms. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Pfaff,
Yes.
Mrs. Merrill.
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn,
Yes.
Mr. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lowenthal, yes.
Thank you very much, and I want to take just a moment to thank Cameron for his leadership through the budgeting process. It's amazing that a community can work through as smoothly as it does at Plainfield, but it's because of a whole bunch of work behind the scenes. And then will you pass on? I know all the board members are grateful for the work of each of the department heads and how they all work together to get something to come to us. And also, even though a lot of people think that we just take the money in, we also spend it very, very carefully. And I think everybody on the staff really should be complimented and thanked very, very much for the extra time. It's a totally different attitude. And I'm really excited about the new capital project. I think that's very smart to pull the capital projects out of the individual departments. Do you have any comments?
I do. I want to thank you for recognizing staff's role in the budgeting process. It's not just Warren and myself. It's everyone who's a part of the decision-making when it comes to expenditures. It's something, as Warren indicated, we start the actual budget process in June, but it's something that is really going on year-round. It's something that staff are thinking about upcoming projects or upcoming needs or changing of operations, and they're tucking that thought away until the budget process starts for the next year. And so it's a constant evolution of how we monitor expenditures and monitor needs and put that into the next budget. So it's a big process, and there's a lot of staff involved. So I appreciate you recognizing their involvement with that. And especially when we ask our staff to move up our second budget workshop by a month. That caught us off guard a little bit, but we've made it happen. So my appreciation to Warren and to all of our staff who got their numbers in on time, so it was not a problem. And they were able to move it forward from October to September and move it up a step. They're ready to go. So thanks to everyone for doing that work. And you know, I'm really excited about too the capital improvement. For a while we've had a fund balance policy, and that was something that was probably 8-9 years ago already. The board members said, look, we need to know what is an appropriate level in the piggy bank. And so we went through that process. We looked at what's the best practice, and they set the levels at that time, and it's been reaffirmed that we need to have a minimum. What's the minimum so the checks don't bounce? And then what is the target? You know, just to make sure that we have enough for when those emergencies happen or when there's an economic downturn. And 40% was set at that bar, and that's been reaffirmed over the years at 40%. One challenge we've had, though, is our piggy bank has recently grown above 40%, and we don't have a good mechanism for making sure those funds get put to use. And so this will be a much better tool for making sure those funds get put to use, covering the needs that this community needs right away, instead of we sit with it in reserve and say, well, okay, well, we know we have the funds there, but you know, we got to have a good mechanism to put them to work. So I think this will help us meet some of those needs and drive forward some of those projects we're trying to accomplish. So I look forward to working with that next year. Speaking of next year, we're wrapping up this year pretty quickly. Only 2 board meetings left. I heard before the meeting there's a few people who will be out of town, so just making sure we got enough. Frank, you'll be here?
For the next meeting, you're counting heads for next?
Heads for next meeting, you'll be here.
Yes.
Kathleen, and
I will not be.
you will not. So Bill, you're gonna be around for the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, that's quorum, so no one can get sick, no one can break a leg, okay.
I'll keep that in mind, Cameron.
No illnesses allowed, so
Yeah.
we'll have to cancel the meeting if we miss anyone else, so. Couple things that are big things that are coming up yet. Next meeting, we'll have our DDA public hearing. And so the DDA is up for renewal. It's renewed I think we're on like a 15-year cycle, which is just long enough that none of us were involved at the last time we did this. So it's a new process for everyone every time, it seems like. The DDA is a valuable tool for helping the Comstock Park area have that quality of life atmosphere that it has, you know, and when a DDA is functioning well, people can't really point to what it does, but they can get the sense of the atmosphere of what's been built. You get free public parking areas that are well-maintained. You get seating areas next to the ice cream shop, and most people probably don't even realize that's a DDA function to make the little brick paver seating areas, the walking trails, and some of those things. So, and then let's not forget about the events. I knew you were waiting for that one. So, things that bring people into the area, encourage that business activity, and strengthen that business sector. So we'll be looking at that next meeting. And then we've got some other big things coming up in December as well, all of our regular end-of-year things. So 2 meetings left, and then we'll kick off the next year. One thing that I want to bring to your attention, staff have been working closely with MDOT and our consultants on improvements for Plainfield Avenue. And so we're getting into the real nitty-gritty of what can be done. And it's a tricky conversation with MDOT because their mentality is get the cars through as fast as possible, spend as little doing it. And so we've been working with them. We appreciate their time to work with us. And you know, at first it felt a little bit like just humoring us, like, here, listen to us a little bit. And now we're starting to work together a little bit better in terms of putting some actual plans together. We're approaching businesses about closing unneeded driveways that come off of Plainfield, trying to reduce those conflict points where someone might be turning in or out and another car might collide with them. So trying to make the traffic flow a little bit smoother. And also, as we went through the Reimagine Plainfield process, one of the biggest pieces of community input that we received was greening up the area, really improving the look instead of having all this hard pavement everywhere, getting some greenery in there. And by closing some of those driveways and reducing some of what they call tapers, these long leads to a drive where you see it just angles out. In the winter is the best time to look if those tapers are really used. See if there's any tracks in the snow. And if there's not, that's a taper that you really don't need. And reducing some of those and putting them back to greenscape will really help beautify the corridor. So we're gonna have some ideas to present to you hopefully soon here as we work towards this plan. We're racing to get the plan together for a project that's scheduled for 2025. It feels a little disjointed, but they need to know what is included so that they can get that out to the engineers to design, to get it out to bid for the contractors. That's the point we're at in the process. But we're working to wrap up what we hope to get in the plan for this time around. It's something that we're not gonna get everything that we want right away. We're gonna have to work with MDOT and say, what can we accomplish now? What can we accomplish next time we go out and do some more work on this road? What can we accomplish down the road? We talked about Reimagine Plainfield being a 20 to 30-year plan, and that's the mentality we gotta take, that we will take what we can when we can get it, and we'll keep working on chipping away at it. So be excited to bring that back to you with some concepts that we can put into place. So that's all I have for tonight.
A little bit of chipping away is taking place at Plainfield Lumber. Would you like to tell them?
Yeah, so if you've driven past the old Plainfield lumber site, it was indoor storage for a while. Now I think you can actually see in the front doors from Plainfield Avenue, and it's all wide open. It's going to be indoor soccer. So I haven't heard an opening date, but they're working on that steadily right now. It'll be a neat addition to the corridor and to the community there.
And also, the new Anna's House is open.
Yep.
Oh, where that is?
So new Anna's House on Northland Drive. Drove past it today, so they're open, and goodness, every table was full when I drove past. So people have figured that out. So, yep.
That's in the place of the older Burger King. Yep, right. Okay, thank you. Exciting report. Board members' comments? Bill?
I noticed the old Whitmart building, which was a big program for us. but it looking lousy out there. The weeds are getting way above what the ordinances allow. And either that man should be charged back and have it done by the township, because that's not right.
Well, the ordinance only covers the first 25 feet. So once you get past 25 feet, you don't have to mow the weeds. That's the problem there. So,
Well, maybe we ought to change that ordinance, make
well,
it 50
that
feet,
would
you know?
be,
That would do
that
it
would be
then.
the right effort to correct that, is a change in ordinance.
That's one way of doing it. For some time, the businesses that are treating handicapped people with their problems getting in and out of the doors, we ought to have an ordinance that they have a way that you can get it in automatically. Because I seem to notice that now, you know. Of course, I didn't notice that 10 years ago when I came in their office, yeah.
Thank you. Kathy?
Just to note, 2025 is 13 and a half months away. So
Oh, boy.
Thank
not
you,
that
Kathy.
far off to think about. So it's always much better financially when you're dealing in the black, right? And so that has been historically conservative and well-run. And so I am really grateful for that, that we do not have the struggles that so many other townships and cities have. So thank you.
The only thing I have to say is if someone is willing to help out with elections next year, we really need people. If you know anyone that would be willing, please direct them to the clerk's office. We're gonna need a lot of help for elections, most likely next year.
Frank?
I'm all set, thanks.
Jack?
There's a song that I
Oh.
learned as a child. It's called On the Jericho Road. I don't know if any of you have sung that as a child, but I was on the Jericho Road today. And the trail is almost to the river. It was blocked off. They had the signs one way. And so I don't think they'll get it completely done before winter. Maybe they're thinking of it, but it's quite far. So.
I learned today that we're not going to make it to the river, Jack. I'm sorry. But we ran into a hiccup with Spectrum Charter. Yeah, Spectrum Internet. They had to do some work to clear some of their equipment in the right of way, and lo and behold, when we were checking in with them, they said, what work order? So we've been waiting for, I don't know, weeks and weeks for them to do their work, and it wasn't on their work order at all. So now that that's been cleared up, we're getting pretty late in the season. So the intent is to stop before the river for this year and finish up in the spring.
Yeah, and that was my thought, but they were grading right up to the river this morning.
Okay.
So, but, you know, that's as far as they go. But
Yep.
I was quite excited for that. I want to be one of the first to be on that trail, but I don't know. I don't know if I can do it in the middle of the winter.
You have to sing if you do, Jack.
Oh, I thought we were going to hear a song.
No, that's all right.
Nope. Thank you very much. A couple comments. I'm absolutely thrilled with how wonderful Airway looks. Have all of you, we're all driving to Jericho, but have you driven on Airway for a while? It's just outstanding. Am I remembering that there's going to be some kind of a crossing across Hunsberger?
So we talked to the road commission. What we have is what we intend to build. We can't do like a light. There's a question about push button light. We don't meet the numbers for that. So this is what is intended at this point.
Okay, thank you. And the other closing comment I'd like to make is that Cameron was one of the featured township superintendents, managers, in the most recent Michigan Townships Association magazine. The heading on the cover says, "When do you hire a manager?"
Right,
And
I saw
over
that.
the page, and your responses were very, very positive, and I thought it was quite interesting because I was on the board when we decided to change to a manager, and I thought the comments from a manager who's running a very large township compared to some of the other communities who had different issues, but still needed a professional to help them get through it. And the article is outstanding. It really made Plainfield shine, and it certainly gave you credit for the quality of the work that you do for us, too. I agree.
Great, congratulations, Cameron.
No other comments? The meeting's adjourned.